Hi, I'm back, and now for part 2. And this time we're looking at the most profitable sales mix. See how handy all this information becomes? So we have some information. I have a product 1, or TLX, that is 2. We can make 2 per hour on the machine. Product MTV, we can make 5 per hour on the machine. And our machine has a total capacity of 2750 hours per year. So the customer will buy at max 4,700 of the T product and 2,500 of the M product. The selling price is $15 for one and $9.50 for the other, and then we have our variable costs. So what do you do with this? Well, first of all, you got to see which one contributes the most to the overhead. So let's kind of look at that. So how do I figure a contribution margin? Well, I take the selling cost minus the variable price. Selling cost minus the variable price cost. So, and that gives us a contribution margin per unit of $10.20 and $4. But wait, we are producing how many units per hour? That's going to make it a little more interesting because we're looking at the per hour. So if I make 2 per hour, my contribution hour per hour is $20.40. And if I make 5, this one is $20 per hour. So this one has the highest contribution. So that would be the one we'd want to maximize, right? So how many of these things will they buy? What's the max? The max was 4,700, right? So if I do the max on both of them, I come up with a total of 7,200 units. And how many hours it would take to make each of them. So if I do the max here, and I divide that by 2, because I get 2 per hour, right? It would take 2,350 hours to make the maximum they'll take. And if I divide this one, 2,500, by the 5, I will come up with 500 hours. So obviously, I don't have enough hours because the max hours I have for this machine was 2,750, correct? Alright, so what are we going to do? Well, I'm not going to cut production on that TLX because it makes the most. So it's going to kind of look like this. I'm going to make the 4,700. So that's going to be 2,350 on the hours. That leaves me 400 hours to spend on the M parts, or the MTV parts. So how many parts is that? Okay, 23 hours, 2,350 hours times the 2 comes up to 4,700. And 400 hours times 5 comes up to 2,100 pieces. Okay, so now we're making 4,700 of one and 20. This is our best sales mix because we get the maximum contribution margin here, and we also pick up the contribution margin for 2,100 of the other. So now we have a total of 137.80, and that's the max by looking at this, because they won't take any more than 4,700. Then the remainder would fall onto the MTV. So that's kind of a fun one to play with. The next one we're looking at is replacing. And this is kind of interesting because we have this piece of equipment. It has a book value of $4,500, a useful life of 5 years, and a salvage value of 0, and a market price of $5,200. It has variable manufacturing costs each year. It costs $36,000 yearly. We have 2 alternatives. We have a machine that costs $115 with variable manufacturing cost of $19, or 125 and variable of 15. Now this is really important, these variable manufacturing costs. See how much lower they are? They're going to be the key here. So if we keep the present machine, it's going to cost us $36,000 for 5 years in manufacturing costs at $180,000. If I buy alternative A, it's going to be 5 years times the $19,000, which gives me $95,000 cost versus that $80,000, and there's a difference of $8,500. We're going to do the same thing down here with B. It's 5 times 15,000 at 75. That's how much its cost is going to be to maintain it. And that is a difference of 105,000. So they're gaining that. So let's look and see what we've got. First of all, we're going to buy this 115 machine, 115,000 machine. We've got a cash trade-in. That's that market value here. We're going to get that. So we have reduced, okay, our variable costs, so we can subtract those. We've reduced them by 8,500. So the total net change in net income from this machine will be an increase of $22,000. That's good. So if there were only one, if I were only looking at keeping the present one and doing A, I would probably do A because I'm going to increase my net income. Alternative B is same situation, 125, 52, only the reduction in cost is 105,000. And that gives us a total net change of $32,000. So out of these three alternatives, as you go through this, you would probably select B as you go through this, okay? Fun stuff. Here's another one. I think we kind of broached on this in another area. We're looking at a product. If this product is discontinued, I spelled that wrong, continued, it's even hard to say, discontinued, calculate the income, loss, or gain. So it's showing a net income of negative 125 now. So what happens if we compare these two and see what happens? So we wouldn't have the 2 million income, so that's at 0 on the eliminate. We wouldn't have the direct materials or the direct labor, so that's not going to show up. Wouldn't have the variable overhead. Wouldn't have the variable administrative costs, but we would still have the indirect. We wouldn't have the direct fixed cost either, because that's directly tied. We'd still have that indirect fixed cost. So our total expenses would be here, 2,125,000, but they would be 300,000 here with no income to cover it. We would have a greater loss if we stopped making this part or selling this part than if we eliminated it. So that means we need to come over here and figure out a way to at least break even with this part, since it's contributing so much to those indirect fixed costs that are going to be there no matter what. Now, the final one, make or buy. And we've done this before. I bet you guys can do this one. The only tricky thing here, and I am going to let you do it, the only tricky thing here is the cost, the overhead, right here. The overhead, 80% of the overhead is fixed, which means only 20, and that's this right here. So if you look at this, you're going to multiply out your variables per unit. 50,000, 5, 8, and 9. But when you get to the overhead, which is this one right here, you're only going to take 20% of that cost for your variable overhead. So now you're going to compare making it versus buying it. And you can buy it from an outside vendor for $18 per unit, and you can decide which way to go with this. If you have trouble, please email me. I'll give you more hints. Thank you.